Hello and welcome back to Brick Speak. Today we will discuss a very fascinating topic, the story of British military thinking and how it shaped modern warfare. This is not just history, it's also about lessons that continue to guide armies around the world, including ours. We're talking about something called operational art, which has been introduced to you in the previous four episodes. To recall, operational art is a fancy term, but simply put, it's a part of military planning that connects a big strategy, like winning a war, to the tactics used on the ground. It's where ideas on paper are turned into actions on the battlefield. For us in the Indian Army, this discussion holds special importance. After all, we inherited much of our military thinking and practices from the British. At the same time, our adversary on the western border has also adopted and adapted similar ideas. The question is how we, as the Indian Army, move beyond these borrowed principles and build something unique to fit our challenges. From the trenches of World War One to today's high-tech warfare involving drones and cyber attacks, the British military has evolved constantly. And their experience is a rich source of learning for us. As we go along, how have we changed fundamentals to meet the realities of our own terrain, adversaries, and goals? Let's begin this fascinating journey with Brigadier P.S. Gotra. Brigadier Gotra, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bhatia. So nice of you. Today we will be discussing about the Britishers. The first part Brigadier Bhatia has covered, that is regarding the doctrine and the operational art. And to say a few words, while doctrine provides a guiding framework, the teaching the soldier how to think, and it doesn't show you what to think, which is done by the creativity, and that the part is done by the operational art and the tactics and the strategy. We moved straight away to the next part, that is the European influence of the British military strategy. European theorists like Clausewitz and Jomini profoundly shaped the British military strategy, laying the groundwork for modern operational concepts and their practical applications. Clausewitz, on his work on war is his work, avoided the term operations initially, focusing instead on the relationship between strategy and tactics. His German term, Handeln, the business of war, was later interpreted as operations, reflecting the evolving understanding over time. His approach was deeply philosophical, emphasizing warfare as an extension of policy and grand strategy. In contrast, Jomini offered a systematic approach in his work, treated as Grande Operation Military. He simplified operations into clear principles, introducing classifications like lines of operation. His structured methodology made operational art accessible and influential across 19th century European armies. Unlike Clausewitz, he used the term dogma, favoring precision and predictability in war. The British military absorbed these ideas selectively. Jomini's concepts were reviewed and applied by figures like General Sir William Napier, shaping the British doctrine. By mid-19th century, operational art gained recognition in the British military thought, addressing strategy and tactics in a more integrated manner. Britain's strategic culture further differentiated its approach, focused on the homeland defense led by the Navy and the offensive expeditionary campaigns abroad. British military strategy reflected its unique global challenges. So these were unique to the Britishers only. Their dual focus distinguished British methods from continental strategies emphasizing adaptation to varied theaters of wars. So, in summary, Clausewitz and Jomini's theories significantly influenced British military thinking, merging European philosophies with the British distinct strategic priorities.
Okay,
Now,
here, Gotra, I would like to intervene.
yeah,
From what you have said, I have gathered that while Yomini, the philosophy laid down by him is ideal for leaders who prefer structured and clear plans. His ideas probably work the best in wars which are predictable, traditional battlefields. Whereas Clausewitz, his philosophy was more useful in complex, unpredictable wars where political objectives and uncertainties dominate the planning.
exactly. It was Clausewitz was at the philosophical level, whereas Germany went down at the lower level to give out the parameters and all.
So if our students keep these things in mind, they'll be able to write the correct thing and also remember few examples. Like Yomini was about winning battles using set principles, while Claus was he focused on winning war by understanding the bigger, unpredictable picture. And both these thoughts or views have influenced almost entire military community all over the world, and majority of them combine both these elements. Yeah, please go ahead.
Now, the next part is Hamley and Henderson. Hamley and Henderson were pivotal figures in shaping the British military doctrine and strategy, contributing to the evolution of Operation R within the unique context of British, global, and European challenges. Now, this was a unique thing for the Britishers only. They had the colonies to be administered. They were the island states, so they had to look after the defense of that also. They had
Right.
interest in the Europe also. So these people were shaping up there. So now we go one by one how Hamley and Henderson contributed to the British strategy doctrine. Next. Hamley's contribution focused on the practical aspects of war. Drawing inspiration from Jomini, he emphasized the universal applicability of strategic principles. His book, The Operation of War, written in 1866, linked tactics and strategy, focusing on the logistics and planned actions rather than the broader implications of the Operation Art, as you said in the introduction. Hamley viewed war as a series of deliberate practical steps, but avoided deeper discussions on the strategic culture. Henderson, in contrast, pushed British military thought further. He stressed the importance of historical analysis and strategic culture, critiquing Hamley's narrow tactical focus. Henderson argued for aligning operations with overarching strategic goals, highlighting the need for flexibility in balancing Britain's commitments to the Europe and the Empire. He also emphasized integrating maritime operations with land strategies to defend and project power across the empire. In the next chapter, when we discuss the Americans, there we will discuss the theories of Mahan also, which is
Right.
about the strategies
Sea
on the
power.
sea.
Sea power,
Yeah,
yeah.
sea power. The evolution of British strategy reflected these insights. As colonial power, British prioritized naval dominance and expeditionary warfare over large-scale continental conflicts. Thinkers like Henderson stressed the interplay between land and naval forces and importance of adapting to modern warfare. as seen during the First World War, which highlighted combined arms, logistics, and global conflict dynamics. Now, the legacy which they had left, the work of Hamley and Henderson laid the foundation of the British military doctrine, influencing both tactical execution and strategic planning. They also underscored the challenges of balancing expeditionary needs with defending an empire, shaping Britain's unique approach to operational art. Their contribution remains a significant illustration how military thought evolved to meet British complex global demands. Anything on this, Bhatia?
Yeah. I would like to summarize what you have said. Like we had discussed in the previous section, in this also these two thinkers have further developed those concepts which Jomini and Clausewitz had said. Like Hamley emphasized on universal principles and practical side of strategy and tactics. Now, he believed in very clear, structured guidelines that could be applied to any situation, ensuring that operations are systematically planned and executed. On the other hand, Henderson, he prioritized understanding the broader picture, aligning operation with overall strategic goals. He focused on the importance of historical analysis, learning from the past campaign to adapt to the changing circumstances. Henderson highlighted flexibility and the need to integrate, like you said, land and naval forces to address the unique challenges of modern warfare. Let's not forget, we are talking about Great Britain, who was a superpower, and as traditionally said, that sun never used to set in British past. This was basically their reach to a new colony was by sea, so they needed the operational art to execute sea power, and thereafter to conquest the land, they needed land warfare. So it was an excellent combination of sea power as well as land power. That is why the British remained unconquered for more than 2 centuries. So, and it also therefore says that is the reason most of the armies are actually following the operational art that was practiced by the British. Towards the end, we will examine, has the modern warfare, when we talk about hybrid, unconventional, gray zone warfare, has it reduced or increased the importance of operational art? As we progress, we are going to talk about that also. Over to you. Please continue.
Yes, Bhatia, next part will be discussing the British General Staff and the creation of military doctrine. Now, it was a big force, where we have seen it was a colonial force operating at various theaters of war. So, for that, you required a staff to collate the inputs from various theaters and put up a summary which can give a proper apprise the commanders about the various situations so that they can take decisions on the strategy, on the operational art, on the tactics to be used.
And in fact, you will agree with me, there's nothing to beat British staff work. I mean, they were absolutely meticulous. And even today, most of our procedures and the way we do our staff work is exactly the same what the Britishers used to follow.
Yes, another part was that what Napoleon used, that is the telescope, whatever telescope it was, that he also made the officers work like that. He made three compartments in that. But this was more formalized, this thing.
Formalized, yeah, absolutely.
So this British General Staff was established in the early 20th century, and it marked a pivotal moment in the military planning, addressing the need for centralized guidance and the standardized doctrine. However, the innovation faced significant challenges, balancing European warfare priorities in the strategic flexibility required by the British global empire. So, in 1908, they came out with the Field Service Regulation Part 1, where which was a cornerstone in the doctrine development.
Yes.
So its doctrine has to be based on the inputs. So it became the cornerstone of the doctrine development. These standardized procedures reflected lessons from past conflicts like South African War, emphasizing strategic concentrations, joint army-navy operations, and adaptability to various conditions. They sought to unify diverse practices under a single framework, offering officers guiding laws while allowing situational flexibility. Now, situational flexibility is also required. However, tensions arose. Figures like JFC Muller criticized the rigid doctrines, advocating for adaptability over strict rules, while thinkers such as Pope and Say emphasize the importance of leadership and the harmonization of strategy and tactics as exemplified by Napoleon. The doctrine also reflected uh, Britain's unique role as an expeditionary force. It prioritized maritime and land coordination, balancing imperial defense with the potential European conflicts. Special attention was given to irregular warfare and the challenges of engaging unconventional enemies, further underscoring Britain's strategic complexities. Britain's strategic culture, centered on naval dominance and flexibility, shaped its military thinking, but of doctrine of no doctrine. That debate on doctrine of no doctrine highlighted the difficulty of creating universal principles of diverse conflict.
Yeah.
So, despite these challenges, the creation of General Staff and the Field Service Regulation laid the critical foundation for the modern operational art. These developments not only formalized the British military planning, but also accommodated the complexities of the managing a global empire, setting the stage for future military innovations. The next part is on the First World War. The First World War marked a transformative period in the military history, forcing the evolution of operational art and or redefining the conduct of large-scale warfare. Nature of conflict was, as you see in the World War I, the war was defined by the static trench warfare. That was to stop the blitzkrieg, which happened in the Napoleonic era. Static trench warfare, then massive mobilization and prolonged engagements. Commanders faced immense challenges from overcoming the entrenched defenses to managing supply lines and coordinating vast armies across sprawling four fronts. Pre-war doctrines emphasized swift, decisive battle, and it proved adequate for the war's grinding attritional nature. As stalemates persisted, traditional strategies faltered, resulting in high casualties and the need for innovative approaches. Now, the technological impacts on this were the modern weaponry like the machine gun, heavy artillery, and tanks reshaped the battlefield, while advances in communication such as radio and telegraph revolutionized the logistics and command. So these developments demanded significant tactical and operational adaptation. So for this adaptation, the complexities of these conflicts gave rise to operational art as a distinct level of the warfare. Commanders shifted from pursuing single decisive victories to planning multi-phase operations aimed at wearing down the enemy over time. Key innovations were the combined arms tactics, integrating the infantry, artillery, tanks, and the aircraft also. Strategic reserves and the breakthroughs like the German Spring Offensive in 1918 exploited the enemy weaknesses, demonstrating new approaches to warfare. So overall, the lesson learned were the war highlighted the need of flexibility, coordination, and long-term planning while exposing the limitations of rigid doctrines. So adaptation to the evolving technology and tactics became essential now. So there's a separate chapter on lessons from the First World War in this. The aftermath of the First World War marked a turning point for the British Army, reshaping its doctrine and strategy under the influence of visionary figures like J.F.C. Muller and Basil Linderhart. The war transformed strategy, moving from Jomini to Clausewitz's theoretical framework to a policy-driven, theater-focused approach. Operational art emerged as a vital concept for managing complex wartime environments. Critics of rigid doctrines like Hague structured systems highlighted the need for creativity and mobility and flexibility, paving the way for the innovation. Hart introduced the indirect approach, advocating for the maneuver, surprise, and psychological dislocation of the enemy. He distinguished grand strategy from the battlefield tactics, focusing on the systematic and the psychological impact to disrupt the opponents. Dis- Despite differing terminologies, Hart and Fuller agreed on integrating tactics and operations within the broad strategic framework. The British Army evolved beyond rigid pre war models, emphasizing adaptability, multi theater strategies, and the inclusion of irregular warfare. The field service regulation adopted to address these critiques, reflecting practical demands of modern conflicts. Challenges and continuity. Balancing traditional military principles with the evolving warfare demands remain a key challenge for the British General Staff. The contribution of Fuller and Hart reshaped military thinking, establishing principles that influence all future conflicts and the development of the modern operational art. So, this evolution highlights the critical interplay between the historical lessons, innovative thinkers, and the dynamic nature of the warfare. Now we move to the next part, the Second World War. So the Second World War revealed significant operational changes for the British Army, shaped by the influential figures and a lack of cohesive doctrine. Influence of Fuller and Littlehart, both thinkers contributed to British military thought but faced criticism. Fuller's advocacy for mechanized warfare and his experimental mechanized force received mixed reviews, while his complex prose alienated many. Littlehart emphasized on his emphasis on the mobility and indirect strategies was underappreciated during the war, leaving their ideas underutilized. Early battles such as Dunkirk highlighted the consequences of the fragmented doctrine, as we have highlighted in the operational failure part 2 of this slide. While decentralization was theoretically encouraged, overly restricted and detailed instructions from the higher ups stifled the initiative, leading to the operational inflexibilities and missed opportunities. Montgomery's tactical leadership. General Montgomery's leadership with the 8th Army in the North Africa demonstrated the importance of rigorous training and coordination between infantry and artillery. However, his success relied on detailed tactical planning rather than mission command. This underscored the broader doctrinal shortcomings of the British Army. Operational art in the late war, that is by 1944 to 1945, advancements in the communication and intelligence improved the British Army's ability to execute operational art. Despite better tactical performance, the lack of unified doctrine and conceptual depth continued to hinder the strategic coherence. The British Army struggled to balance in its colonial responsibilities with the large-scale European operations. The absence of mission command limited the flexibility and judgment of the subordinate commanders, further constrained the operational adaptability. So, overall, World War II exposed doctrinal deficiencies with successes achieved through the tactical adaptation rather than the strategic coherence.
I'll try and sum up both World War, how actually the World War had a profound impact on evolution of operational art as we saw subsequently between the two periods of World War One and World War Two, and subsequently during the Cold War also. See, in World War One, the British Army faced static trenches. You brought it out very clearly. The battle stretched across long fronts with heavily fortified trenches, barbed wires, and constant artillery fire. The goal of achieving a decisive breakthrough was almost impossible. So there were a lot of stalemates that resulted. Now, these stalemates led to logistic communication and coordination across vast static battlefield very, very difficult. Whosoever was able to look after the logistic communication and the subsequently coordination aspect better became the winner. So there was innovation like combined arms, that is, artillery, infantry, and tanks working together. So these became the necessity and the importance of uh, combined arm was realized, but the operational art had not evolved. It was after World War One that both use of combined arm and operational art to use it effectively, as well as the opponent to beat this deadly combination came into being. So by World War Two, warfare had become far more mobile and dynamic. The British, they responded to fast moving German tactics. German relied on speed, surprise, achieved by their Panzer, that armored division. There was a shift from trench warfare to mechanized operations, which in turn required flexibility and coordinated strategy. That is why our audience will recall what Brigadier Gotra had said, that during World War II, it was all about flexibility and coordination. There was a requirement of putting more focus on air, land, integration, rapid deployment, and better use of intelligence. So we will continue with what Brother Gotra is telling. I will keep intervening to just summarize what he has said in simpler language. Over to you, Gotra, please.
Okay, next slide, please.
Yeah.
So next part is on the British Army of the Rhine. Now, I was very intrigued with this heading of the part of the chapter. So when I searched it, what happened was the British Army of the Rhine was a British military force stationed in Germany after the World War II. It was responsible for occupying and administering the British zone of occupation in northwest Germany. And BAOR, as it was called, was the key part of NATO's Northern Army Group, North Tag, it was said. So this influenced a lot of the NATO tactics during the Cold War era because they were heading the thing. So in this chapter, we will go over these things. So during the Cold War, the British Army of the Line played a key role in NATO's defense strategy, but faced significant challenges due to the doctrinal rigidity and the strategic constraints, as Bhatia had said earlier. Montgomery's legacy. Now, it is very difficult to defeat the legacy or question the legacy. Montgomery was a winner in North Africa. So, post war military practices within the BAOR were shaped by Montgomery's centralized command approach. Montgomery, in fact, was commanding this BAOR approach, which prioritized control over flexibility and decentralization. While counterinsurgency and special forces outside Europe developed more independent roles, the BAOR remained tethered to the rigid command structures. So these led to the operational constraint. The British Army doctrine focused heavily on the tactics and training, often neglecting the operational art. Sir Frank Kitson's counterinsurgency theories, low-intensity operations, provided valuable insight into it, but did not fully integrate the operational art with strategic planning, reflecting broader doctrinal shortcomings. Within NATO, war games prioritize tactical firepower and planning over the maneuverability and operational depth. The dominance of Soviet nuclear capabilities and the conventional forces posed significant challenges for NATO's forward defense strategies, exposing vulnerabilities in the operational level planning. By 1980s, NATO faced mounting pressure to adapt debates over nuclear deterrence, cruise missiles, and the no-use doctrine, highlighting the need for alternative approach, as we had seen earlier in the earlier chapter also. Meanwhile, Soviet doctrine under Marshal Agarkov emphasized operational maneuver groups, pushing NATO to address its lack of operational depth and cohesion. So overall, the key takeaways from this was the British Army of the Rhine exemplified the tactical focus of the NATO forces during the Cold War, but struggled to achieve the operational coherence. While counterinsurgency thinkers like Kitson advanced specific aspects of doctrine, the BOR's rigid structures and the reliance on nuclear deterrence limited its strategic and operational adaptability in Europe. So this was a compartmentalized approach in NATO, headed by the British Army of the Rhine. So now we move to the next part, the Bagnall and British military doctrine. Nigel Bagnall, the commander of the first British Corps from 1981 to 1983, played a pivotal role in advancing the operational art within the British military doctrine. Bagnall emphasized maneuver warfare over attrition. He prioritized integrating operations within the larger framework of the strategy, advocating for flexibility, initiative, and preemption to seize initiative. Under Bagnall, NATO thinking in 1980s gained coherence by focusing on known enemy tactics and geography, leveraging intelligence for adaptive response. His doctrine underscored the need for balanced operational decisions with the strategic goals, making the British military more dynamic and synergetic. In 1989, British Army formalized its first official military doctrine called Design of the Military Operations. Design of the Military Operation, which Bagnall significantly influenced. This doctrine structured warfare into four levels. That is the grand strategic, military strategic, operational, and tactical. Otherwise, we've been thinking of only three levels, that is strategic, operational, and tactic. But he classified it into grand strategic, military strategic, operational, and the tactical. highlighting the operational art as a critical link between the strategy and the battlefield actions. So it emphasized joint cooperation, scalability, and efficient use of resources, rejecting rigid principles in favor of adaptable and context-driven decision making. Bagnall's contribution helped modernize the British military thought, fostering an approach that embraced maneuver, minimized resource squandering, and sought to disrupt the outmaneuver adversaries. Next part is on the after the Cold War. The post-Cold War era brought dramatic transformations in the global power dynamics, military doctrines, and the operational art, reshaping the nature of the warfare. The collapse of the bipolar power structure saw the United States emerge as a dominant global power. Military strategies transitioned from large scale conventional warfare to addressing asymmetric threats like terrorism, insurgencies, and regional conflicts. Innovations, the technical innovations in precision guided munitions, surveillance, and communication revolutionized the operational art. Network centric warfare emerged, emphasizing the integration of real time information systems for seamless planning and execution. Changing nature of conflict like the Gulf War, Kosovo War, the Afghanistan War underscored the need for rapid deployment, joint operations, and flexible strategies. The focus shifted from deterrence to intervention, emphasizing peacekeeping and nation building and counterinsurgency operations. So, NATO started adopting, NATO and the Western militaries revised their doctrines to address modern conflicts, prioritizing interoperability and the multi domain operationals. New approaches incorporated like the cyber operations, uh, psychological warfare, and the economic sanctions, reflecting the non traditional aspects of the.
Now, the question which is coming in my mind is the operational art as relevant as it used to be in the modern warfare, the time when the gray zone, hybrid threats, and advanced technology is it has blurred the line between peace and war, civil and military domains, physical field, there is a digital battlefield. So, is the operational art relevant as of today also?
Like you see in this slide, uh, the asymmetric warfare and the hybrid warfare, they challenge the relevance of the traditional law part. There is a blurring lines between the combatant and the civilians, as you see in the insurgency and the like the Afghanistan. There was blurring this demarcation between the enemy and the Osama bin Laden and everywhere. Then there was the impact of technological advancements. Digital technologies compress the time availability for the operational planning. So, people, the decisions have to be decentralized. People have to take decisions down below. There is less room for distinctive op planning for to be carried out at the higher level. And military engagements increasingly focus on the direct tactical actions, especially so in the counterinsurgency type of warfare, where the tactical level people have to exercise.
Another very interesting thing I would like to bring to your notice, though you have obliquely covered it, but since I am from intelligence corps, the situational awareness actually has increased manifold today in the age when you are using drones and you're using satellite images. So there is a problem of operational art because there is an information overload that is coming up. But then there are solutions also. I think in India, we need to integrate the latest technology that is available use of artificial intelligence. Now, that probably is the way forward for us, and to quickly, whichever force is able to quickly arrive at the assessment, beating the adversary in time and hence in space, is probably going to win the war. I think in the rapidly evolving warfare, the role of operational art has not diminished. It has expanded in scope and importance. We need to integrate strategy, tactics, and resources in order to win wars. Without operational art, modern militaries would struggle to connect the various information that is coming up, the tools that are available to wage the war, and the tactics on ground to utilize all this in one go. Without operational art, it is not possible. I think we've done justice to the topic today. Thank you very much, Brigadier Gotra. Looking forward to a few more lessons. I understand operational art. This subject is heavy. You need to listen to our podcast more often, deliberately. And with this, I thank Brigadier Gotra once again, and I close today's episode. Wishing you all the best. Keep working hard. Thank you and Jai Hind.